Hey, and welcome to another live episode of Rocket Live. I'm your host, Chris Vaglio, and my special guest today is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jeff Goldberg, who is a sales coach with Jeff Goldberg and Associates. And I'm really excited to have Jeff on because Jeff and I have actually connected a few months ago. We've been talking a lot. Jeff was gracious enough to have me on his live show a few months back, and we had a lot of fun talking about personal branding and sales and professional development. And of course, we both love our rock music, and we'll be sure to be talking a bit about that today for sure. But I want to welcome Jeff to the show. Jeff, thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I really appreciate that. And I got to tell you that while I was listening to the open, I was like, I don't even want to talk to Chris. I'm just grooving out to the music. If I wasn't so old, then I probably would have been headbanging. I just don't want to hurt my neck, you know?
you don't want that headbanger neck strain. Yeah.
Exactly. Plus, I definitely don't have the hair for it. So let's move on.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, listen, you got more hair than me, man. Look at this. You've at least held on to it.
I was rocking in my head. Don't worry.
Yeah, there you go. So I want to thank everybody who's watching live with us right now. And of course, always a very special thank you to everybody who will be watching a replay of this later on. And for those of you that will be listening to the audio version of this much later after that, thank you very much for always listening and supporting the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to like, share, and of course, subscribe to the channel, because that not only helps me grow the channel, but it also helps the people that I have on as guests. So please make sure that you remember to like and share these episodes if you like them with everybody in your network. So let's dive into it. Toughest question right now, starting right off the top. Favorite Beatles record?
Record or song?
Let's go with record, because I think song is going to be tough, right?
It's all tough. Song is easier for me. Record, wow. I guess I've got to go with Abbey Road. I mean, there's not a Beatles record that I don't love, but I just love Abbey Road. When they get to that side too, and it's all one thing after the other, it's just fantastic. And you got a song like "Hello, Darling" on that. Oh, Darling, yeah. Hello, Darling. Oh, Darling, which to me is astounding. I wonder to myself all the time, what I would say to Paul McCartney if I actually got to meet him and chat with him. And it would probably be, when you finish recording "Oh, Darling," did you look at yourself in the mirror and go, holy shit, I'm amazing? It's just incredible. For me, the greatest song, I Saw Her Standing There.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Simple, and it rocks out. It's like you hear that, that 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's like, oh, I know what I'm in for. I sometimes just play the 1, 2, 3, 4 over and over and over in my car, and then go through it. It's to me my favorite song ever.
Nice. And I think we talked about this last time, but just for the benefit of my viewers, who is your favorite Beatle?
Well, it's got to be Paul.
Right. Like
everybody, I love them all, and I know there are John people who don't like Paul, and Paul people who don't like. I love them all. Even Ringo, the drummer. To me, Paul, he's amazingly creative. He's a little bit too syrupy sometimes, but I love all his stuff. And, obviously he's lasted just forever.
Yeah.
George and John did not leave us on their own, but he's just amazingly prolific. He knows how to write hits.
Yeah, no, that is for sure. He is definitely a hit maker. My favorite Beatle is, I think we did talk about this, is my favorite is George Harrison. I love George. I just, when you listen to his first solo record, it's such an explosion of music. It's like, I've been holding this in for years, and here's my record. And then he, more and more records. And, definitely different songwriter than Paul, and John for sure has his own unique style, but just always was my favorite Beatle. I always gravitated, not to take anything away from anybody else in that band, but, from a gravitational perspective, and I just always moved more towards George.
Well, I mean, even when they were together, songs like "Here Comes the Sun." I mean, where does that come from? I mean, it's incredible. I'll tell you something funny that just happened recently. I'm in a bunch of Beatles groups on Facebook, and somebody had written that George Harrison is the greatest guitarist of all time, bar none. Try to change my mind, and I'm like, all right, I love George Harrison. There's no doubt. And he's a good guitar player, but the greatest of all time, come on. I mean, you got Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton and people like that. And he's a good guitarist, but not the greatest.
Oh, yeah.
Of all time. And now I have a standing joke with my kids that, Pink Floyd, you know what would have made them better? George Harrison. Zeppelin, what would have made them better? Any song we hear, you know what would make that song better? And the standing joke is George Harrison.
Right.
Not to take anything away from him. Look, I love him too. Look, the Beatles,
of course.
The Beatles without all four of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you could say I too think for a lot of, the rock bands that have had so much success, like together, they're so much better as a group than they were as a solo. And not that as I say they aren't talented, but there's something about that collective creativity and music making that, everybody brings to the table, including Ringo, because I know everybody likes to give Ringo some smack, man. But I always like to throw respect to Ringo, because Ringo definitely did have that backbeat. And, and from the history of the Beatles, they wouldn't have even gotten the bigger gigs and gotten all the bigger shows and all that and played the clubs they got into if it wasn't for Ringo, because he was actually the name, he was the guy who was the guy who opened doors for them, getting Ringo into the band. He was like the rock star. Yeah,
he's rock solid. I mean, you can't shake Ringo. That beat is always there. He's not fancy. For me, Carl Palmer. Now there's a drummer.
Well, but, yeah, I mean that's super technical prog, like crazy. But yeah, Ringo's sometimes it's all about the simple backbeat that's it.
It's the same thing look, none of them were fancy guitar.
No.
George Harrison, a fancy lead guitarist? No. But he was perfect for the Beatles, just like Ringo was. You probably know the old joke, what do you call a guy who hangs out with rock musicians? The drummer.
Yeah.
But Ringo was perfect for them.
Yeah, he really was. It was just, once again, it's the great combination of having all the right people together and producing that amazing music. So thank you for indulging me at the top here as we jumped into Beatles discussions for a bit. But I do want to talk about, once again, I know you and I could sit here and talk about rock and roll and bands and all that forever and ever and ever. But I do want to talk a bit about, what you do for a living, like your sales coaching. And I think that you and I have had a lot of great offline conversations about this. And I think you bring a really great, unique perspective and attitude to the whole idea of selling. Because I think most people, they hear selling, sales coach, and like, I don't like that. But it's like you totally, and this is from a lot, you and I share a lot of the same philosophies and beliefs when it comes to selling, and that it's not really selling at all. It actually comes from a place of absolute serving, and the sales end of it just comes from providing absolute amazing service to people. So let's talk a little bit about it, because what I had titled this on the live stream was how to make your business rock with sales, something along those lines. So let's talk a bit about that. Let's dive in.
Yep. So you're 100% right. Sales, the come from, and whenever I describe this to people, I always point to my rather now ample gut. But the come from is, how can I best serve you? And I think where I differ from so many other people who do what I do, sales coaches, sales trainers, sales consultants, it's that sales is really not about convincing people of anything or persuading people of anything or talking people into anything. In fact, I believe that sales is simply a conversation or a series of conversations leading to help the other person choose to do business with you. So it's really, when I work with people, it's really about, how do you have a better conversation? How do you have a better chat? How do you ask the right questions? How do you listen actively? Because as opposed to what most people teach, that you got to be a great presenter and you got to be a strong closer. Look, I'm a professional presenter. I present for a living. I can present with the best of them, but that's not how I close business. And strong close, I sold Encyclopedia Britannica door to door when I was young. That's how old I am. Knocking on people's doors and getting them to spend $2,000 for a set of books that their kids could go to the library and use for free. So I know how to close, but that's not what sales is about. It's truly always, Chris, it's always about the same three things. The best salespeople, and I've been in sales, it's almost 48 years now, selling, working with salespeople, coaching them, training them, managing them. It's always three things, three characteristics. And the first one is, the best salespeople are always the best question askers, because that's the key to selling. Consistent prospecting is the key to sales success, but selling success, you want to be asking the right questions. And I train people how to do that. The second thing is, if you're going to be a great question asker, you've got to by necessity be a great listener. And most salespeople, or whether they're professional salespeople or they just sell as part of their job, this is a technical sales training term, by the way, they suck at listening. They're
so true.
Horrible listeners, because we think we get paid to speak. I get paid to speak, but not when I'm selling. When I get selling, I get paid to ask questions and listen. And the third thing is always salespeople, the best ones, they're great storytellers. Think about any salesperson that you respect. They tell great stories, and they can tell you a story about anything. And there's a particular type of story that you have to tell when you're selling. And I call that a verbal proof story. It's a story about somebody else like you, Mr. or Ms. Prospect, who by doing business with me lived happily ever after. And that's crucial because the way the brain works, if anybody studied brain science, they know that when you're considering buying something, your brain tends to go to the negative first. What if I hire Chris as my coach and I give him a bunch of money and it doesn't work out? What if I lose my money? What if I lose my job? What if? That's the way our brain is wired up. So we want to be able to tell stories to our prospects about somebody else like them who by investing with us lived happily ever after, because that helps them get past the, what if I lose?
Right. And I think that's really great. And this is where, like I was saying at the top, like where you and I share a lot of very similar ideology about this, because it is so true. Like I often tell people, like, how to be most effective is listening. And I go, you gotta act like Columbo. You're a detective at this point. And the thing is, but you're asking these questions because you're just trying to find out all the best ways to help somebody. Like if you can get answers to, the pain points of what's going on in their lives and their business, you can help them so much more than just selling them a bunch of garbage they don't even need or they're not even interested in. Like, what a novel idea is to actually like come up with a solution for their challenges and their problems, and then provide them like an amazing, like, okay, well, here you go. Here's what addresses all the issues that you have, and and just keep talking to them, have a conversation about it. You learn so much from people rather than just trying to jam like the sales end of it down their throat. It doesn't work. And I think more so now than ever, with everything we've been going through. I mean, think about, which is going to lead into another great question, is, think about what's happening on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn and all these cold emails or messages that you get, and it's just like, I understand it's like sort of the new way of cold calling, but I just think it's completely ineffective on me. It doesn't work on me because I just feel like it's completely impersonal, and this says nothing. And I know it's a numbers game. So if I blast out 1,000 of these a week, 2-3 people maybe will call me and I'll close one of them or something. Like, I don't know what the percentages is on that game, but I think that a lot of people struggle with like how to really get in front of an ideal prospect, right? Like, what are those? Because I know everybody asks me a lot, and I all I ever do is share what I know and how I do it. But I'd love to hear from your perspective, like how you train and coach people on that, like the techniques that you'll teach them to do to really, get in front of the decision maker or the right person. And to me, it's not sending and blasting out cold LinkedIn emails to title targets on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you're 100% right, of course, which is why I love speaking with you. The thing about sending out these cold emails on LinkedIn, and I'm a big fan of LinkedIn.
Me too,
it's a great way to develop business. But if you send me a connection request, and let's say I didn't know you, send me a connection request, right. I accept it, and a millisecond later, I get a note from you saying, thanks for accepting my request. By the way, I help coaches like you get 1,000 qualified leads in 0.2 seconds with no investment whatsoever. Are you interested in speaking with me? What?
Nope.
Really? No, yeah. I'm not, because you can't do that. I always equate sales to dating. And it is very simple. Does she like me? Does she like me enough to go out with me again? Does she like me enough to close the deal? Well, I equate that reach out followed by that immediate come on, like me walking into a bar and walking up to a woman and saying, hey, I only live a few blocks away. I want to come back to my place. No drinks, no discussion, no dates, no nothing. Come back to my place. Now, look, if it's 3 a.m. and she's had enough drinks, maybe that's going to work one time out of 100. But I'm no Brad Pitt. I'm pretty self-aware. I'm no Brad Pitt. And that doesn't work for me. You got to have a relationship. And it's the same thing in any kind of sale. So that direct LinkedIn approach does not work well. And there are great ways to use LinkedIn. One, using content. Give generously of your brilliance is what I call that. Share your brilliance generously. And some of the people who see your content, you're building up an audience, and some of them are going to reach out to you and say, hey, I need to talk to you about doing some coaching. So LinkedIn can be a highly effective way. And, excuse me, you can link directly with people, ask them to connect with you. And when they accept your connection, the first thing is thank them. Thank them for accepting the connection, and don't ask for anything. If I can ever be of service, please let me know. If you're interested in hopping on a quick call to see what each of us do and how we can help each other's companies, I'd love to do that. Are you interested? And either they are or aren't. And then what I like to do on LinkedIn is I like to add value. In everything I do, I'm looking to always add value. So, if I know you're starting a business, Chris, and again, let's say I didn't know you, I might Google, what's the best way to start a business these days? And I'll send you an article, and then I'll send you another article 2-3 weeks later, and maybe another one in 2, 3, or 4 weeks later. And after 3 or 4 of those where I've given to you generously without asking for anything in return, now I might say, hey, you know what, Chris? I work with a lot of coaches like you, helping them improve their sales skills. If you're interested in having a conversation, I'd love to. Very gentle. But I've earned the right. So LinkedIn can be a terrific way. Here's another one. And I get arguments with people about this all the time. Cold calling on the telephone still works if you know how to do it right. And there's many, many right ways.
There you go.
And way more wrong ways to do it. So a lot of people are turned off to cold calling because A, they think they're never going to get in touch with anybody, especially during COVID. And B, they just don't know how to do it. Here's the truth. Because of COVID and so many companies, especially right here in the New York City area, I'm on Long Island, so many companies are working almost entirely remotely. People are psychologically missing what they're used to, which is being together in an office with a bunch of other people. It's a very social setting. And they're working on their own. So they're actually more receptive to getting phone calls from salespeople right now than they have been in the last probably 10 years. So it's actually, if you know how to do it well and can put together a list, it's a great way to prospect right now. I'm a huge fan of networking. I belong to one networking group for the last 16 years, which accounts for anywhere between 50 and 65% of my business year after year after year. The key, of course, is finding the right group for you and investing the time to get to know all the people. Email marketing is terrific. Direct mail is making a huge comeback where it was going down. You'd be more of an expert on this than I am, but nobody's using direct mail. Why? I want to do what the other guy's not doing. Here's another example of that. Nobody sends handwritten thank you notes anymore. Now,
I talk about that a lot. Yes.
I started out in sales. Here's what you do, Jeff. You thank everybody for everything. Handwritten thank you note. Nobody does that anymore. So now when somebody takes the time to send you a handwritten thank you note, it means so much more. It's kind of like are you on Facebook?
Yes, sir.
So on your birthday, don't a bunch of people on Facebook wish you happy birthday?
They sure do.
People who you don't know.
I do the same.
It said, oh, it's Chris's birthday.
Yep, Chris's birthday. People get the notification and boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Or they'll send you an email card. Well, that's lovely. And look, I love, I've got lots and lots of people who are friends on Facebook, and I love getting all that acknowledgement, except you know what means more to me? One Hallmark card. One person who went to the grocery store or to Hallmark, paid the $3 or $4 or $5 to buy the card, wrote me an actual personal note, put a stamp on it, and took it to the mailbox. That personal touch is what's missing these days. And I think everybody's looking for the next cool thing, and so am I. Don't get me wrong. I'm always looking for the next social media thing. Like right now, Clubhouse. I'm loving Clubhouse.
Me too. Yeah, it's another great way to connect.
But the foundational stuff that we forget, we shouldn't forget. Little things like that, I think.
Yeah.
By the way, Chris, this is the number one challenge of every company I've ever worked with and every person who hires me as their coach. The number one thing they struggle with is I'm just not reaching enough prospects. I'm not having enough conversations.
Yeah, and that's I get the same thing, and that's where I come at it from the personal branding side of things. But you're dealing with it from the whole sales and business development side, and yeah, it is. It's like, how do I keep my pipeline full? How do I stay top of mind with my current, which I think a lot of people forget about. Everybody's all on the hunt for new business all the time, but everybody always forgets to go after or speak with the existing relationships you spent like 10, 20, 15, whatever it is, building. And when you do things like you said, like little handwritten cards, and I bought these little cards from Amazon, and they say different phrases on it, which are hilarious, and they're all based around saying thank you. And I will fill out the card, and some people made fun of me, but I got little magnets made, and I got little pins, like old school pins made, and I'll write a letter and I just stick it in the mail and throw it in. And you know what? I get so many thanks from just doing those little things like that. Like, oh, thanks for the pin and a nice note. Thanks for the magnet and a nice note. Thanks for the sticker. Like, like stickers, it's hilarious, but it really goes a long way with staying top of mind with people. And it's that, once again, that level of personalization, that coming from a place of serving. How can I be a service to you? Well, you're being a service of somebody by brightening their day a little bit and doing something that's a little unexpected and disruptive in a very positive way. Like, people hear disruptive and they think like, oh, I got to do these big things. But you know what? A little disruption of sending someone a handwritten note with a little tiny, like, we'll call it a gift, is like a great way to brighten someone's day like that. And it disrupts their whole pattern, but in a very positive way, not negative.
It feels special, which is exactly what you want to do. Here's a perfect example. One of the things I also do is outsource sales management. There's a company I manage, and we were looking at using send-out cards.
Right.
And, I contacted a send-out cards rep and said, I need to know about your service and the cost and all that stuff. And she actually sent me a card. Now, here's how she was brilliant. It just so happened that I knew the woman on Facebook. She took a picture of my dog, who I love desperately, and who I call him the beach pug, because I live a block from the ocean. I walk him on the beach all the time. I take pictures of him on the beach. I take videos of the waves, and I show him, and beach pug, beach pug, beach pug. So she took a picture of my dog right off Facebook and put it on the front of the card. She sent it to me. There's no way I'm not going to open that card when I see my dog on the picture of a card. She made me feel special. There's nothing I wouldn't buy from her, because she got to something she knows I care about. And it's those little touches that make the difference.
It really does. It's that. So well said. So well said. So I love that we are just focusing a lot on the things that you could be doing right. Let's talk about maybe some of the most common mistakes that you oftentimes will see sales and business development people do. And a lot of times I can't really fault them for these mistakes, because it's how they were taught. It's how they were, or they just don't even know any better because no one told them that that's not the way to do things. So what are some of the most common, and we'll call them mistakes that you see salespeople do? Sure.
The first one is not investing enough time in prospecting and not putting it on your calendar. So I'm a very organized guy, and time management is something I work on with my clients, both corporate clients and coaching clients. Everybody struggles with time management, and I teach something called calendarization, which simply means everything gets put on your calendar. But when I take on a new client, typically it's because their sales are off. They want to increase their sales. And often I'll have a conversation like this: Jeff, I was doing really well, and then I don't know why, but all of a sudden my income plummeted. I don't know how to get it back. Well, the first thing I do is, let's look at your calendar. I want to look back the last 3 or maybe 6 months. And here's what I never, ever see on anybody's calendar: prospecting time. Now, yeah, you're laughing, except it's the most important thing a salesperson can do on a daily basis, bar none. Of course, you have to sell new clients. Of course, you have to take care of your existing clients, because it's 6 to 12 times easier to sell to an existing client and 6 to 12 times less expensive to sell to an existing client. So you got to be doing that too. But you've got to consistently be prospecting for new business, because no matter how good you are, sometimes through no fault of your own, clients are going to drop off. Yeah. It just happens. So you've constantly got to be replacing them. And if you want to grow your business, you got to replace them and add to that. So not putting it on your calendar and then sticking to that time. I just had a conversation with somebody I highly respect today on LinkedIn, because I had made a comment about the need to professionally prospect on a regular basis. And she said, I do put it on my calendar all the time, but I always let something else get in the way. No, there's nothing more important than prospecting on a daily basis. So put it on your calendar. Another mistake that salespeople make all the time is that whatever way they're communicating, whether it's on the phone, via email, on social media, they make it about them. It's never about us, ever. I want to meet with you to do fill in the blank. Who cares? I suggest salespeople should always ask themselves this question for anything they say and anything they write. So what? Because that's what your prospect is saying. And when I get a message, I want to meet with you to discuss blah, 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 I don't know about your audience, but who gives a shit? I don't care what you want. Here's what I care about: me. I care about me. Speak to me. How are you going to help me? That's what I'm interested in. You want an appointment? F you. I don't care. I'm not. Look, it's just the fact.
Yeah.
Even the people who love, look, I know you have raving fans like I do. And even people who love me the most, long-term corporate clients who pay me substantial amounts of money to come in and train their teams, I'm 100% convinced they would prefer it if I paid them to let me do my job. Now, that doesn't work for me, but they're interested in them. So when you make all your conversations, whether it's on the phone, via email, I want to meet with you because of this, who cares? You've got to make it about them. The other thing that's crucial is consistency. See, there's a challenge that occurs for salespeople, for most of us at least, especially people like you and me. When we close a deal, we've brought on a new client. We've now got to deliver. That's going to take a lot of time. And what do we give up first? Prospecting. Every single time. Look, when people tell me they love prospecting, I know they're either lying or they're crazy. It's one or the other. I don't love prospecting. Cold calling? I would rather live in my car than ever have to pick up the phone and cold call again. And it's one of my favorite things to teach people to do. But I don't have to do it. I do it once a month for like 20 minutes just to make sure that what I'm teaching people is still working. But no kidding. I'd rather live in my car. And here's why, Chris. I want every conversation in a cold call for me to sound like this. So let's say I was calling you. You didn't know me. I call you. You pick up the phone and answer it however, Rocket Agency or whatever, whatever it is. I'm going to say this. Hi, Chris, this is Jeff Goldberg from Jeff Goldberg and Associates. And the way I want the conversation to go is like this. Jeff, stop right there. I've heard about you. I know you're so damn good that you're going to get the appointment from me. And I know once you get here, you're going to sell me. So why don't I save us both some time and just send you a check right now? Except that's not how the call goes.
That would be amazing if it does. But I see where you're going with this. Yeah. So it's massive rejection. Except I'll tell you something. It's still the most cost-effective and time-efficient way to fill up your calendar with appointments if you don't have enough. But the key is you got to be doing it right. And there's a lot of there's way more wrong ways to do it, but there's many right ways. And I'm not the only guru. There's lots and lots of people out there who can teach you how to cold call. I suggest anybody who's looking to prospect should be using, well, first of all, you should get a coach. I know that sounds self-serving, but it doesn't have to be me. There's lots of people who can help you out there. I agree. I agree.
But the key is schedule the time in. And whatever you're going to do, I suggest a blended approach. If you do a little cold calling, do a little email marketing, do a little bit of everything, test and measure everything, see what's working best and what you're actually enjoying doing. So if I did a little bit of everything, it would take me very little time to figure out, I don't want to cold call at all. However, if that's being the most effective thing and I have no appointments, I might have to put up with it for a little while. When I started my business, Chris, it was 100% cold calling. That's all I did because I needed business immediately. And it is the quickest way. But I became very, very good at doing other things as quickly as I could so that I could phase cold calling out of my mix. So it's really focus on the thing. Like I like LinkedIn. I'm happy to be on there. There's not a lot of rejection on LinkedIn, but it's a longer play. I like networking. I love meeting people face-to-face or via Zoom and getting referrals. So you do a little bit of everything, discover what works best for you and what you actually will do, and then do it consistently.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Such a great message. And it really is, really at the end of the day, it definitely comes down to the consistency. Like, for instance, like I know my calendar, like every day I have it from 9 to 9:45 and sometimes 10, I think depends on the day. But I literally have it listed as follow-ups. And I do want to talk to you about this because and I know what that means for myself. For me, it's just a trigger. I use that to do my follow-ups. I do my prospecting. I do a lot of things in that 45 minutes to an hour every single day. But I do want to talk about follow-ups because I think, and I talk to people about this all the time, and I am shocked, and I shouldn't be at this point about anything, but I am shocked how many people still do not follow up properly. And especially when, and I think a lot of times, even what's going on now, people have really dropped the ball, I think, on following up. I feel like that's just like, it's, you think about it, like even the days of going to like an event and, you get the stack of cards, you walk a trade show and all this, or you have a booth. And like oftentimes, like there's no follow-up protocol. There's no follow-up at all with what's going on. And then they go, well, we didn't get any sales from this, or I didn't get any, like, well, what did you do to follow up? Like, well, you maybe sent an email. Did you even remember to send an email? Like, even sometimes with networking, like I'll say, hey, and I always say this, I say, hey, so we're in a room right now, and forever, if anybody in the room says, hey, I've got a referral for you, it's up to you to do the follow-up and get that referral. Like, that person's got to make the referral. And of course, we all want to be really good and make it right away. We know that's not always the case. But if that person says, hey, I've got something for you, it's up to you to do that follow-up with that person. Go, hey, great meeting. Just wanted to follow up on this, on the fact that you said you made every referral and introduction for me. Would you have time to make, like, let's talk about that, because I feel like this is a big thing, and I'm sure you deal with this a lot with your coaching.
Sure.
The art of following up.
100%. So very rarely do you run into somebody who has what's called a one-call close. Right. In my business, I've had exactly 6 of them in the last almost 17 years, and I'm good at selling. I'm so good at selling that other people pay me to teach them how to sell and coach.
That's them. How good you are.
Yeah, I'm pretty damn good. But I don't have a lot of one-call closes because I have a process that takes them through typically 3 meetings over an 8-week period. This is when I'm selling sales training as opposed to coaching. Coaching can be a one-call close, but for sales training, almost never, because I've got to have a couple of meetings. We've got to present a proposal, tweak the proposal, go through the close and all of that. So if I'm not following up, and if you're not following up on the deals that you're working on, why'd you bother in the first place? Unless you're in a business that like I mentioned Encyclopedia Britannica before, that was a one-call close. We knew that if you didn't buy it that night, you were never buying. But in most businesses, that's not the case. So unless you have an effective follow-up methodology put into place, you're going to lose a lot of business. And that's the person who walks around going, gee, I wonder, why isn't anything closing? You didn't follow up, and you didn't make people feel special. See, we salespeople think that we're the most important people in the world to the people that we're speaking with. Yeah. And while we're sitting right in front of them, we may be pretty high on their list. Now, for me, there's never a moment when anybody's more important to me than my 3 kids or my dog. But if you're sitting with me and trying to sell me something, it's my 3 kids, my dog, and then Chris. But as soon as we get off a Zoom call or you walk out of my office, I've got 7,000 other things that are going to take precedence. Even though I might be interested in working with Chris on my brand, I've got a million other things to do. But every time you follow up with me, every time you make me feel special, every time you add value, then you're getting closer and closer to me going, you know what? I should really give Chris a call, or I should accept his offer, or I should sign the contract, or whatever it is, because I need to feel special. Most people don't feel special in life. And when we as salespeople make people feel special by paying attention to them, by following up, by letting them know we want their business, we get closer to a sale. And most people just don't get that concept. I do an exercise with people sometimes about how important it is to make people feel special. And I'll just briefly outline it for you. So I'll find somebody in the audience who's married, and I'll ask them how long they're married for, and whatever it is, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. Let's just assume it's a man. I'll say, so how long did you date your wife before you actually got married? Let's say it's a year. So you knew her, you dated her for a year, and then you've been married for 10. So you know your wife for 11 years, and they'll always go yes. And I'll say, I'd like you to close your eyes for a minute. And I want to take you back 11 years. Usually there's a big audience of people all watching this happening. So somebody will close their eyes, and I'll say, I want you to think back 11 years. Now, it may be 11 years in a week. It might be 11 years in a month. It might be 11 years in 3 months or something like that. But at some point, you realized that the person you were in love with was also in love with you. Is that true? And they'll always go, yes, it is. And I'll say, I want you to access that feeling just for a moment. I want you to keep your eyes closed and remember what it felt like when you realized beyond all belief that this person you'd fallen in love with was also in love with you. And everybody, they always do the same thing. They start looking up, and they'll get that smile on their face. And I know that they've got what I'm talking about. And I'll ask them to open up their eyes and say, how does that feel? And they'll use terrific, good, whatever they say. Everybody likes to be desired. Everybody likes to be wanted. We've got to let our prospects know we want them, not from a place of desperation, but a place from, I really want to work with you. I sometimes get accused of being old school or corny, but I'm telling you, I say this to prospects. I want to work with you. I know I can add tremendous value. I think we should do business. I want to work with you. I used to be a recruiter. I owned my own recruiting agency for 4 years. And it was never that I was the best at developing job orders or getting clients to say they wanted to work with me. I was really, really good at preparing people to go out on interviews because I know how to sell. So I train people to sell themselves on an interview. And I always train them at the very end. Here's what I want you to do. Tell them you want the job. Say the words, I want this job. I want to work for your company. Hire me. You won't be sorry. Because I assure you, if it comes down to two people with similar skills in a similar price range, it's the person who said, I want to work for you, that's going to get the job offer every single time. So in sales, we need to do that too. We need to consistently follow up, investing the right amount of time in it, depending on how interested the person is and how far along you are in the sales cycle. Because one of the things salespeople need to understand is the further you surpass your average sales cycle, the lower the chances of closing the deal are. So I have an 8-week sales cycle for selling training. If we get to 9 weeks, it doesn't look as good as it did the week before. 10 weeks is worse, 40 weeks is worse. Doesn't mean that somebody won't do business with me after 40 weeks. It's just not as likely. So I put less time and attention in following up with somebody who's at 40 weeks in the sales process than it's somebody who's at 7 or 10. So we want to devote the appropriate amount of time. And we want to make sure of something else. When we're following up with people, we want to make 100% certain that we're adding value on every single call. Find some bit of information that you can give them that helps them. And then you mentioned it before, and I love that Columbo. Almost as a Columbo, there's just one more thing.
Yeah.
A Columbo should be, by the way, about that proposal. See, what salespeople typically do is they deliver a proposal and then they call. Hey, just following up on that proposal, give me a call. Hey, I was wondering what you're thinking about that proposal. Give me a call. You know what that really means, Chris? It means, did you decide that you want to do business with me but forget to let me know? No, they didn't forget to let you know. They're just not ready. So you do have to follow up, and you have to invest the appropriate amount of time in your follow-up. Here's one more thing that I think will be useful for anybody who's watching this now or later who sells. And this is what I consider the most important thing I teach any salesperson. I often get people who come up to me, when I'm giving a big presentation, I'm setting up my computer. There's always somebody who comes up and wants to shake your hand, and I'm really excited, and I love training. And if I learn one thing today, it's worth it. That's an old wives' tale. If you learn one thing out of reading,
if I learn one thing, a whole thing.
Well, to me, I always say the same thing. If you only learn one thing in a day with me, you got ripped off, my friend. I'm going to give you hundreds of things. So, but if they only learned one thing, this would be the one thing I'd want them to learn. And it's called the BNAS, which stands for Best Next Action Step. And what that simply means, Chris, is you never, ever, ever leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there. There's your follow-up. I don't have to chase you a million times on my proposal because I'm always setting up the next meeting, and it's not the way the typical salesperson does it. Here's a quick example. The typical salesperson ends a meeting like this. So let's say I was trying to sell you sales training. Hey, Chris, you've given me a lot of great information today. Here's what I think we should do. I'd like to go back to my office, think about everything we've talked about, put together an outline of ideas on how we can increase sales at the Rocket Growth Agency. And as soon as I've got that outline of ideas written, I'll give you another call. We'll set up another meeting. I'll come back and show it to you. And that way, you'll have all the information you need to make an intelligent decision whenever you're ready. How does that sound to you? And what would you say to that, Chris?
I would say that sounds great.
That's exactly
Let's do that.
Everybody says, sounds great or sounds good. But what did you agree to? All you agreed to was it's okay with you if I go back to my office, about our discussion, write up a proposal, and it's okay with you if I call you. You didn't say you'd take my call. You didn't say if I call you on the phone that you'd agree to the appointment. A better way, Chris, you've given me a lot of great information today. Here's what I think we should do. I'm going to go back to my office, think about everything we talked about, put together an outline of ideas on how we can increase sales at your company. And I'd like to come back and show you that outline of ideas next Tuesday at 3. Well, when you agree to that one, you just told me something. And what you told me was you're interested. Because a busy executive like you who's running his own business, who's already given me some of his valuable time, now agrees to give me more of his valuable time. That's the prospect I'm interested in working on. That's who I'm going to follow up with. And I don't have to follow up with you because I already set the next appointment. If your audience gets nothing else out of this conversation, I hope they'll walk away with that one because it's a guaranteed moneymaker. You will save 1 to 3 weeks off your sales cycle every time you get a next step. Every time, I promise.
I love that so much because I'm such a huge fan of that. I mean, it's 100% true. I urge everybody out there that's hearing this, listening to this, if you're watching this on the replay, if there's, I mean, and Jeff just dropped a ton of gems in this interview, but that one in itself is so key. It really is. It's great. That is a good one. That is such a good one. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jeff. So I know we're starting to run low on time, but there's a few more things I just want to talk about. So one more thing is I do want to say, or I'd like to ask you. So when it comes to selling, what do you think is a more valuable tool or more valuable skill, or what do you think is strongest? Is it more the mental side of things, or is it more technical? Like for if a salesperson is going to possess any kind of a superpower, which way do you go on that? Is it more the mental or more the technical?
Yeah, let me ask you a question. What's more important to you, food or air?
Wow, they're both. Yeah. I mean, you can't do one without the other.
Yeah. So look, you could be technically great at selling, and if you're mentally weak, you're not going to make it. You're just not, right. Because sales is, for most of us, massive rejection. Yeah. You know, I run into people all the time who tell, "Oh yeah, Jeff, I close 80%, I close 90%, I close 95%." Really? My answer is always, really? I want to take your course, because I don't. Look, again, I'm so good at selling that people pay me to teach them how to sell, but I only close 42% of the people I first meet with. Now, that's a staggeringly high number. I should have a high closing rate. I'm a professional sales coach, but right. That still means 58% of the people I first meet with say no. So we've got to be able to face that massive rejection. And here's the challenge. Mm-hmm. In order to be successful in sales, you've got to be somewhat optimistic, because we do face massive rejection because more people say no than yes. And we have to believe it's all going to work out. But the optimism that allows us to do our job blinds us to when people are saying no. And we have to understand that sometimes no actually does mean no. There's the no that means I need a little bit more information. And if you can just kind of give me more, you might actually get me to choose to do business with you. But there's also the no that means, really, it's no. It's never happening. So the best thing you can do there is, I'm glad we could invest this time together. If I can ever be of service, please do reach out, because I'd love to work with you. By the way, who do you know that I should be speaking with? Because maybe they've got some referrals with you. And then the smart move is leave skid marks in their driveway getting out of there, because you've got better things to do with your time than chase somebody who has no interest in doing business with you. So you do have to be mentally strong. When I work with people, we work on both the mind game of selling and the skills. There's plenty of skills and tips and tools and strategies that I teach. Right. We also work on that. How are you going to put up with it when the 17th person for the day hangs up on you when you're cold calling them? How about when 0 emails come back from that email blast? How are you going to stay strong? How are you going to come from the right place? And I'm, again, pointing to my gut. When we come from, I need to close a deal, prospects smell that. And if you do, look, I think we've all been there at times when sales are not what they should be, and we're worried about paying the rent or the mortgage and how are we going to make the car payment and all that stuff. And you need to be incredibly mentally strong to be able to put on your smiling face at that point and not come across as desperate, because I'm 100% convinced prospects can smell commission breath or need or greed, like dogs smell fear. So
they can smell the desperation, man.
They're both important.
Yeah. No, and I love that. And the other thing I want to key on real quick too is what you said about the no part, because I went through the Sandler training like ages ago, and there's a bunch of takeaways I got from that training that I still use to this day. And one of those is, and I tell this to people, is go for that no. I mean, we all want to go for yes, absolutely, but no is actually not a negative thing in that sense, because it's like you just said it, like, I don't want to waste your time. And quite honestly, my time is worth something too. So I'd rather just cut our losses right now and just say, hey, this isn't a fit, and that's okay. So I can move on with my life and you can move on with your life. So I love that.
No is my second favorite word in sales. If yes is here, no is right here. No kidding. And I'm serious about that. And I believe we should always make it very, very easy for people to do business with us. Make it easy for people to say yes, but make it just as easy for them to say no. And I don't want to give people the wrong impression. When somebody tells me no, I'm not getting in my car and driving away immediately. We're going to continue the conversation to see if it's a real no, or they just need some help changing their own minds. But no is fine. You got to learn to look. It takes a certain amount of no's to get to yes. And that's another crucial concept in sales, which I'm sure we don't have time to talk about today, maybe some other time. But you got to know your no. you got to know how many no's are going to get you to a yes, because otherwise you'll go crazy. If you've got a 25% closing ratio, you're going to hear 3 no's to every 1 yes. But the good news is when you get that third no, it's like, there's a yes coming. I may have to get 6 no's to get 2 yeses, but it's on the way. And that's how you keep yourself motivated, knowing your numbers and knowing it's always going to work out, because it will. Salespeople lie, numbers don't. You should always, and by the way, I don't love numbers, but I learned to love my personal metrics, which tell me, here's how many calls I have to make, here's how many emails I have to send, whatever it is, because that's what will get you sane when you're going insane from, when am I going to close something? It's coming. It's right around the corner. Most studies, from business coaches or transformational coaches or life coaches, most studies show that most people give up just before they're about to hit it, just before they're about to close that deal, take a break, take a big boom in their business. We give up just before, because we can't see that it's just about to happen. If we knew that, 2 more days on the Peloton is going to get me those flat abs I'm looking for, which doesn't seem to be working for me. But if I knew it was 2 more days, I'd give that 2 more days. We got to we got to have the faith and keep going.
Yeah, I love that. Love that so much. So we are just about out of time, but I do want to ask you one last bit before we sign off, which is I'm going to bring it all the way back to rock and roll. What's your favorite prog rock band? I know you're into prog rock. I know you're a big prog rock guy.
Let's see. It's something with a color and a guy's name. Is it Purple John? Oh, no. I'm just the hugest fan of Pink Floyd. I love Pink Floyd beyond belief. I mean, David Gilmour's a guitar god.
Yeah.
Their music is, I'm old enough and fortunate enough to have seen them in concert, the actual group, a number of times. Awesome. And now I follow a group called Australian Pink Floyd, which if you haven't, oh my God, it's like seeing Pink Floyd. They're amazing. They do the light show and everything. So I love Pink Floyd. I love Yes. I mean, any of those bands, but Pink Floyd, after the Beatles, it's probably Pink Floyd for me.
Right. What's your favorite Floyd record?
Oh, Dark Side, of course.
Dark Side.
I've seen him do Dark Side and Animals. I saw The Wall live twice.
That's awesome.
I love all that stuff. And even a lot of the early stuff, not all of it. Sometimes I go to one of these cover band concerts and they're playing something. I'm like, who's this?
Off of Saucer Full of Secrets or something like that.
Real deep. But all that stuff from Dark Side on, I just adore. It's amazing. It's what kind of a mind thinks of that? And I don't know if I mentioned this to you last time we spoke, but there's an incredible documentary on the making of Dark Side of the Moon.
I saw that.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And even more incredible too is also the making of Wish You Were Here, and Syd Barrett walks in and they're like, nobody recognized it. And that song is about Syd Barrett, like Wish You Were Here. And he walks into Abbey Road Studios and they're like, who the heck is this guy? Like, he's kind of overweight and bald. And then they're like, oh my God, it's like he just showed up like out of thin air after not seeing for years and years and years, like recording the song that they wrote about Syd Barrett. It's a great story about him just like showing up and just kind of hanging out and listening, and they hadn't seen him in years.
Incredible. My favorite story from that Dark Side one, which it blew me away, is that Claire Torrey, who does the Great Gig in the Sky, that she got done with the recording and she said, I'm sorry, I know I blew it. And they were like, are you kidding me? It's the most amazing thing we've ever heard. I mean, I can play that over and over and over. It's phenomenal. I'm getting choked up talking about it because music really affects me emotionally. I'll go to a Broadway show and I'm in tears, or I'll go to a concert. I'm just crying from how beautiful it is. And Floyd does that for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if there's so many amazing records, and that's definitely one of them. Oh, and here we go. From Karen McFarland, great interview. I have a hard time with sales, so I really appreciated all the gems here. Look at that. There you go. Karen's awesome. Karen's a punk rocker. Well, this was great. I really appreciate you coming on the show today and dropping so many gems and really sharing your time and sharing so much amazing information. So hope everybody who is watching live and will watch us on the replay and hear the audio version of this really gets a lot out of this. Please make sure you connect with Jeff. Jeff, I'm going to flash your website up here one more time, but just for anybody who's listening to this, who will be listening to this on the audio, why don't you just give everybody an audio version of how they can connect with you?
Sure. Well, I'm certainly on LinkedIn and a little bit on Twitter, not that much. You can call me at 516-608-4136. My email directly to me is jeff@jgsalespro.com, just like my website. I also, if you don't mind, Chris, I have a Facebook group for salespeople called The Sales Pro Network, 4 words, The Sales Pro Network. I'm the administrator. Join the group. I founded it to elevate the profession of sales. You can come and share your successes, your challenges. I've invited a lot of my competitors on there, and we're absolutely thrilled to give people coaching. Come out and ask questions. And every Friday, I do a live interview at 10 a.m. Eastern with great people like Chris V, who can add value to salespeople. So come join the Sales Pro Network. And thank you so much for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it. I love talking with you, man.
No, this is great. And I know you and I could go on and on and on forever. I mean, in fact, this is probably what we should do on Clubhouses. I know we like talking about this, but we should just do just a music one, and we're just talking about music. So we got to set that up.
I'm in.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, once again for joining us here today on another episode of Rocket Live. I will definitely put all of Jeff's links in the show notes. So then that way you can go back and go visit his website, hit up his Facebook group, and connect with him as well if you have any questions at all. I really want to say thank you, and make sure you please subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're listening to the audio version of this, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. I go live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please join me next week as we have another amazing guest. Jeff, thanks again, and we'll see everybody next week. And always remember, be authentic, be yourself, and always remember to rock it.